may create a washed out version of history, but a classical civilization simply does not yield. Founded around 900 CE, the Kingdom of Benin was one of the greatest kingdoms in West Africa. Located in the southwest of present-day Edo State in Nigeria, known for its sophisticated sociopolitical systems and urban planning, the ancient kingdom had a mathematical layout and earthworks longer than the Great Wall of China, with huge lamps fueled with palm oil lighting the streets. Benin was one of the best planned cities in the world, as was acknowledged even by foreign explorers themselves. This attracted different groups from Europe.
From about 15th century, 1472 to be specific, we had many Obas. The Europeans appeared during the reign of Obobaifo. They were the first Europeans. That's Roy de Sequeira, 1472, was well received, and he was a trader, an explorer, and there was this promise that he was going to make another trip, definitely, because the people were quite receptive. Unfortunately, it was somebody else that made the trip in 1485. Yes. And then the first Oba they met, Ozora, was already has passed on. So it was his son, Esigir, that the second man now met.
Okay.
Yes. So that was when the Benin Portuguese relationship began. Yes.
Ah. The British sought to expand their economic hold in Benin, but Benin's laws that prohibited foreigners' access into its inner territories were a reason for growing tension. In February 1897, British troops attacked Benin City with overwhelming brutal force, claiming retaliation for the deaths of a group of British officials and some traders. James Phillips and his men defied warnings not to enter Benin at the time of a sacred ceremony, and it cost them their lives. Benin was soon invaded by British forces. With the greater advantage of guns, the British soldiers raided Benin. Many people were killed. Oba Oborame was removed and exiled to Calabar, his palace plundered, and thousands of brilliantly crafted objects in brass and on ivory, steganographic libraries of Benin history, were stacked in piles and looted. This punitive attack led to the swift collapse of a more than 3,000-year-old civilization and marks the most damaging of events to the Kingdom of Benin.
"90 years, we'll be asking the British to return the survey. But unfortunately, the British are holding, yes, a large amount, but it's just a third of what they took in. The problem again is that the looting actually started on the 21st of February 1897 and ended in 1960. In the name of religion, in the name of anthropological studies, in the name of ethnography, all they were looking for were the bits and bits of art left. Not the urban court art, but the art of the Edo people of Benin. So in the name of religion, if you now profess Christianity, go and bring your images. Every dog has his day. Rome ruled the world. Crushed. Greece was once a world power. Persia was a world power. Egypt was a world power. But then nobody has taken, no conqueror has taken so deep a deliberate act of destroying a people that the British chose.
The first calls for restitution came from within the kingdom. In 1914, Obobaifo II requested for the return of the stools which were needed for coronation rites. In the 1930s, Obobaifo II intensified efforts towards the return of stolen treasures. His requests were rejected. After independence in 1960, the Nigerian government raised voices demanding restitution. Following the initial request from the Nigerian government, there were different groups who started requesting for the return of the Benin bronzes. One Benny Grant, through the African reparations movement, amplified the cause. Benny Grant was a Labour MP for Tottenham, London, between 1987 and the year 2000 when he passed away. During his career, Grant fought for the rights of oppressed people and particularly racial justice. In 1993, he founded the UK body of the African reparations movement, known as ARM UK, after attending the 1993 Pan-African Conference on Reparations held in Nigeria. The mission of the ARM UK was to seek reparations from Britain for harm caused during slavery and colonization. A key part of the mission was to fight for the return of African material culture to the continent, and the Benin bronzes were a key focus.
Many of the looted items were highly functional in customary, legal, ceremonial, and ritual activities. They adorned the Oba's palace and served the same function as written historical documents. Among the looted belongings were 2 stools owned by Oba Isigi and Oba Ereswin. These stools were used by the reigning Obas of Benin to appease ancestral spirits who needed to be called upon for blessings at important ceremonies like the coronation of an Oba.
The majority of the Benin artifacts now held in European and American collections were looted during the British punitive expedition in 1897, when British troops invaded Benin City, sacking the royal palace and looting thousands of artworks, including the famed Benin bronzes. These objects were sold in auctions across Europe to offset the cost of the expedition. The Digital Benin project has achieved significant breakthroughs in making previously dispersed and often inaccessible information about the Benin bronzes available to a wider audience, particularly to the Edo people of Nigeria, who are the cultural inheritors of these artifacts. The Nigerian government too faced rejection. The 1963 British Museum Act forbade the return of objects unless duplicated or damaged. European museums clung to looted arts, citing legality over morality. Provenance research was scattered, ownership unclear, decades passed in frustration, but voices did not fade.
When you remove these objects from their context, you tore out pages of our history. You tore out pages of our history. When you keep them caged behind glass, you are caging our very soul. We have to understand that these artworks are not just art for art's sake. These are visual mnemonics of our very history, of our achievements, of our failures, of our anything you can think of. They are embedded in these artworks, the brasses, the plaques, the ivories, the terracottas, the wooden objects, the mud art. And I don't, like I said, I become very, very emotional when I talk about it because it's what I live with all my life. So for me, being an artist is an achievement of my widest dreams, and traveling to museums worldwide was my greatest joy. And I remember holding an object in the University of Zurich without wearing a glove. Somebody said, "Keep quiet, it's my property." Yes, it's my property by descent. It's my property by descent. And it's a thing of glory when what you be seeing for more than 50, 60 years in 2 dimensions, you're able to hold physically. And but of all the objects I've heard is those ivory, because those ivories are books. Police. The plaques are books too, but the ivories are centered around the particular reign and the achievement of the particular king is what is carved. Yeah, that's the one most important. The achievement of that particular is carved on the ivories, and the ivory is not placed on top of the ancestral or the memorial head of the king in question, or Eiloghosa, the head that represents your pleas.
By 2007, amid a wave of decolonization, a coalition emerged, the Benin Dialogue Group. Museum directors from Europe, the Nigerian Commission for Museums and Monuments, Edo State leaders, and the Royal Court came together. Their meetings, including the pivotal 2019 session in Benin City, bettered new initiatives. Workshops in Europe, a plan for a new museum to be built in Benin City, and an initiative to develop a digital platform to create a comprehensive database of the numerous royal objects from Benin, called Digital Benin. A project that has digitally brought together over 5,000 objects working with 139 institutions across 20 countries worldwide.
At the reinstitution of the new dynasty, after the death of Oba Oworame in exile, his son, Obaifo II, next in line to the throne, made the first request for the stools from the British administration in 1914 when he needed them for his own coronation rites, but the request was turned down. Oba Akenzwa II, who took over as Oba in 1933, made a second request for the stools, but his request was turned down as well. The weakened monarchy at this time was still being restored after 17 years of a broken socio-political system and the loss of the sovereign power of the Oba to the colonialists. By 1935, with Benin now under the British protectorate of southern Nigeria, Oba Akenzwa, through a high-ranking official to the British colonies, Lord Plymouth, managed to trace the two stools to the Berlin Ethnological Museum in 1936. The Berlin Museum was unwilling to release the stools, having categorized them as highly valuable. Oba Akenzwa was subjected to settling for plastic replica stools for which he, the king, the Oba, the true owner of these stolen items, was made to bear all costs of replicating and shipping himself. The replica stools created by Herman Noack arrived in Lagos, Nigeria in January 1939, at which point the total cost had amounted to 1,582 rich marks.
The Oba has 2 bronze stools, except if others have been made over the years. The 2 bronze stools were one was first given or gifted to the king of Benin during the reign of Obaifo, while the other one was during the reign of Christian king by Akenzwa II or his father, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 types of stools for the king, and these 2 stools were stolen in 1897 by the British officials. Mm. And these stools, the one that has both the one that has the pangolin and the snake, has very unique iconographies, like the frog, snake, pangolin, and I think a leopard head also. But no, not a leopard, but it's a frog. Frog, lizard, pangolin, and the snake. Either lizard or crocodile. And in this tool, there are depictions of scenes, of events, there are records of activities. It became described as a telegraphic stool because similar stools were produced in post-1897. And those tools produced in post-1897 has iconography of Europeans trading, snakes devouring people, representing the heinous situation that the people were going through, representing that the Europeans are taking over the kingdom. And there is a particular reason why it was called telegraphic stew. That when the crown prince then discovered that it was difficult to communicate with his father in exile, he decided to send him a royal stew. Of course, knowing that Europeans will not see that as an offense, but they will easily agree. It's not just a stew, because they don't really understand because they saw us as barbaric. They did not understand that we had a system of writing and communication. So the son commissioned, even himself as a carver, commissioned the carving of a stew. And in that stew, the iconography depicted the situation in Benin Kingdom between 1897 and 1914, such that when his father, Obobaifo, will see the stew in exile, he will be able to read the stew and then know what's happening in Benin.
The Benin royal family never relented in efforts to retrieve the kingdom's loots, and this was understandable as most of the items were torn directly off the Oba's palace. Between 2010 and 2015 in Nigeria, the subject of restitution began to take the stage in heritage expository forums. In 2019, the German government made a commitment to return unjustifiably acquired Benin artifacts in their public collections. By 2020, initiatives by the Nigerian Commission for Museums and Monuments, led by the Director General, Professor Abba Issa Tijani, began towards restitution efforts, which saw significant breakthroughs.
But the battle of returning the object is not a one-man show. It's even beyond the Benin Kingdom that owns the object. For the object to be returned, it will involve the cooperation of the whole Nigeria, the presidency, and every arms, and friends of Nigeria in abroad, and those who have sympathy or who have love of art for the countries that are the one holding these objects. We must make sure we talk to them and we reason together to see how this object will come.
Persistence had borne fruits. The Netherlands became central to restitution. Through years of collaboration with Nigerian curators, historians, the NCMM, provenance research was conducted, transparency ensured, and community voices included in workshops like Against Opacity. And in 2022, the Dutch government approved the return of 119 Benin artifacts. On their return, 115 were stored in the Obobaifo storage facility in Benin City and 4 exhibited in Lagos. This was one of the largest restitution in history, not symbolic gestures, but true returns.
On 1st July 2022, Germany signed a declaration with Nigeria for the release of all 1,130 Benin objects and artifacts. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock acknowledged it was wrong to take the bronzes and it was wrong to keep them for 120 years. Nigeria and Germany began collaborating towards the terms of these returns and on adequate holding facilities for the repatriated belongings. The construction of a new museum and the Digital Benin project emerged as products of these dialogues. The first set of Benin artifacts, 22 objects returned by Germany to Nigeria in December 2022, at last included the 2 stools originally belonging to Oba Esigye and Oba Eresonye. Although there are debates about the ideal place for returned objects, it appears generally understood that proper restitution means returning to the rightful owner. In May 2024, the 2 stools were formally handed over by the NCMM Director General, Mr. Holloway, to Oba Ewuare II on an occasion of high emotion and pomp, finally home after over 125 years.
Even with these triumphs, challenges remain. Disputes around the construction of the museum and the palace authority, debates about loans versus ownership, and the capacity concerns for conservation. Nevertheless, the Digital Benin project has mapped over 5,000 bronzes worldwide. The NCMM is expanding facilities by construction of the Obobaifo Storage Center. The 119 artifacts from the Netherlands are now in Nigeria, a foundation for education, pride, and reconnection.
Imagine remarkable personalities, scrolls from old time, handwritten books, drawings, paintings, murals, photographs, and sculptural works, each unique in their power and function, forcefully taken from the places and people of whom they told stories.
119 artifacts returned from the Netherlands mark a new dawn. They are not only objects, but voices, stories, and guardians of memory. Together, they stand with these tools, affirming that restitution is not charity, it is justice.
The stools, like any returned Benin objects, would likely remain a trigger of painful memories, but they shall as well speak of conquest through persistence, uniting a great past with a curious present among the people of Edo, and perhaps finally providing a mild sense of closure.